Hey guys, Tera Roberts here with Fantasy Pros, bringing you my Week 12 waiver wire ads. As always, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to Fantasy Pros across all platforms. Now, there are quite a few guys out there that are available in leagues between 50 and 60% rostered. I'm not including them on this list just because I was going to focus on guys that are typically less than 50% rostered, with one exception. Now let's go ahead and dive right in. Number 10, Kadarius Allison. Running back usage in Atlanta isn't exactly consistent, and Cordell Patterson is still the lead back, but one thing is clear. Mike Davis is being phased out and very unusable in fantasy football. Wayne Gallman wasn't a factor last week, and Kadarius Allison was the running back that saw the most usage with 9 carries for 34 yards and 2 receptions. Now, this was Kadarius Allison's first game of the season, and we don't exactly have much of a guarantee that that usage will continue, but at this point, Mike Davis has a total of 16 carries and 32 yards over the past 3 games. I repeat, 3 games, 16 carries, 32 total yards. It's worth a shot to see if Allison can retain a workload moving forward when the waiver wire has very little to offer at running back right now. Number 9, Marquez ValdesScantling. I really didn't think that at any point during this season I would say, hey, go get Marquez ValdesScantling, but here we are, and here I am recommending that you keep him on your waiver wire list. So hear me out and let's talk through it. MVS has never been reliable. The Packers just have never really had to rely on that second wide receiver position. With Aaron Jones down, we thought that we'd see a big workload increase for AJ Dillon, but that didn't really happen. He saw an uptick in targets, but his workload on the ground was only 11 carries. MVS caught 4 of his 10 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. Perhaps with Aaron Jones down, they'll turn more towards those wide receivers. And with Allen Lazard out, MVS has an opportunity to step up and be that second guy. He's a big play capability guy, so when given the opportunity, he can pay off big time in your lineup. Number 8, Cedric Wilson. This one is super quick with Cedric Wilson. As we expected, Michael Gallup coming back sent Cedric Wilson out into non-existent land. In Week 10, he saw 1 snap against Atlanta, but that's not his fault. Dallas just has way too much talent, but that talent is possibly unavailable for the Cowboys' Thanksgiving game against Las Vegas. Gallup and Wilson will lead the receiving core as Dak tries to bounce back from a horrible game. This isn't a long-term waiver ad because most likely Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb would be back in Week 13, but it's a great stream for Week 12. Number 7, Robby Anderson. While the Panthers lost on Sunday, their offense did look much more competent with Cam Newton at the helm. DJ Moore was still the leader in the receiving core, but Robby Anderson caught 5 of his 6 targets for 30 yards. The prior week, Anderson caught 4 of 6 targets for 37 yards and a touchdown. This is a stark difference from earlier in the year where he would see 11 targets and catch only 3. I like this version of Robby Anderson better, and we might be able to get a consistent floor out of him moving forward. Next week, the Panthers face Miami, who just gave up a big game to Joe Flacco, and after their bye week, they face Atlanta. Those are great matchups for Anderson and make him worth a roster. Number 6, Tevin Coleman. Michael Carter is down potentially for a couple of weeks, so it's likely that Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson will be carrying you through the end of the regular fantasy season. Johnson will be coming up later in the list. Now, we don't know how long this will be the case, but for now, the Jets are led by Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco leaned heavy into the pass game. Coleman had 5 carries for 16 yards and 1 reception for 2 yards. It's possible that he gets the majority of the work on the ground, but the way Ty Johnson has been used in previous games makes me lean towards placing Coleman a little bit further back in the list. Number 5, Van Jefferson. It's been a while since we talked about the Rams since they were on a bye week, but for the past 4 games, Van Jefferson has had 6 or 7 targets with 3 or 4 receptions. We expected a big uptake against San Francisco with Robert Woods going down for the year and Odell Beckham Jr. being limited, but unfortunately we didn't see much of a change. But at this point, we don't know if it will be Odell Beckham Jr. stepping up or Jefferson stepping up into that number 2 position. But what we do know is when the Rams offense is clicking, you want to roster that second receiver. Odell isn't 100% healthy. Jefferson is worth rostering through the end of the season. Number 4, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine gets the edge here because it's the exact opposite of Cedric Wilson. A.J. Brown suffered multiple injuries on Sunday, and Julio Jones is on IR. This poor Titans team is reeling with injuries. Westbrook-Ikhine stepped up big time this week against Houston, going 7 of 8 for 107 yards. The Titans' run game is in a full-blown committee right now, and it simply isn't successful. Tannehill threw the ball 52 times on Sunday. Someone will be catching passes in this offense, and Westbrook-Ikhine is the prime candidate. Number 3, Ty Johnson. We talked about Ty Johnson earlier in the video when we covered Tevin Coleman. The Jets' next 4 opponents are teams that are very susceptible to the pass, and if we continue to get a repeat of what we saw against Miami, where Flacco went 24 of 39 for 291 yards and 2 touchdowns, I'd prioritize the pass catching back in this situation. Johnson wasn't productive this week, with only 1 carry on the ground for 5 yards and 1 reception for 8 yards, but in prior games, we've seen anywhere from 3 to 8 targets with upwards of 36 yards through the air. It might be better to gamble on Johnson and see if it returns a solid amount of targets. Number 2, Laviska Shenault. Laviska Shenault simply hasn't been used in the way that we hoped he would this season. And when DJ Chark went down, we expected an uptick of usage, and that just wasn't the case. Instead, Jamal Agnew and Dan Arnold were the main beneficiaries. But Agnew suffered a season-ending injury, and it's possible that his targets shift towards Shenault. We know that Shenault is talented and just needs to be utilized in the right way. Can Urban Meyer do that? The jury is out. But with Shenault, I'm willing to take that risk. Number 1, Cam Newton. It's very rare that a quarterback tops my list, because in one quarterback leagues, there are just typically multiple good streaming options on waivers, but Cam Newton is no streamer. He saw his first full game of the year on Sunday, and it was perfection from a fantasy perspective. 21 of 27 for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 10 carries for 46 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Rushing quarterbacks are the cheat code, and we don't need a ton of volume when the quarterback is the primary goal line option. Cam has several excellent matchups against Miami and Atlanta coming up, and his usage on the ground makes him a potential QB1 option every week. He is a must-add. And that wraps things up for this week's waiver wire ads. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe to FantasyPros across all platforms, and come back next week for another round of waiver wire ads.